That's what the people want. Just kidding. He want ya. The premise of Age of Wonders Planetfall is to take a popular IP and attach a decently fun drafting game to it and sell lots of copies based upon the popularity of the IP. This is a game where the theme doesn't matter. The theme doesn't matter, but if you want to relate to theme, I'll tell you what it is. The theme itself is that you're going to be exploring a number of different planets, 7 planets, and taking things into your own personal tableau, and then you're scoring those things for points. The person who, I guess, explores the planets the best wins? What does it say in the rule book? Yeah, your expedition will explore 7 planets in search of valuable resources and technology, battle hostile units, and seize landmarks. Will you be able to create a new world from the shards of the Empire? You will, because it doesn't matter if you just settle things or if you fight things. Theme doesn't matter. This, in its essence, is a drafting game. Very similar in weight to something like 7 Wonders. That should be the thing that perks your ears up and should get you interested in Planetfall. So let's check out how it plays. You see we have 7 planets in front of us. 1, 2, 3 to 7. Depending upon the player count, I'm going to set up for a 4 to 6 player game. Each planet, each round, you're going to deal out a number of cards in these 3 rows. Here's the setup for a 4 to 6 player game. This is the setup for a 2 to 3 player game. The difference of this will become important when I end up talking about the critique of the game. But in a 6-player game, everybody will get one of these 6 different characters, which are double-sided. You can pick whichever side that you like, and each character has a specific ability. For example, each time you claim the last card of its type on a planet, you gain 2 victory points for Claudius Proton. Or Claudius Proton can have the ability, each time you gain a red card, these are sort of villain cards, you gain 2 energy. You're going to have 3 stats of stuff. You have energy and strength, which are expendable, and then experience, which you can only gain because you can't unexperience things. That's how I was taught it, and I like that turn of phrase. So once you pick your character, everybody will get a starting sort of initiative marker, and then each round you're going to draft 2 cards. So blue might take that one, purple might take that one, orange might take that one, green might take that one, teal might take that one, and gray might take this spot as well, which only one person can go to. Then you'll go through, you'll resolve the cards. Usually it will involve paying for the card. This one will go into green, and wouldn't you know it, green, since they chose it in the top row and furthest to the left, they're going to get to go first. Next, purple will get to go second in the next choosing of things. Gray activates their action, they'll get to go third, etc., etc., etc. Now the options are whittled down significantly, and you go again. Boom, 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 and you keep on doing this until you make your way through all the planets. As you progress through the planets will get better and better, be worth more and more points, and everything will escalate beautifully. That's the basics of the game. If you want to just skip to the review portion, you can. I'm just going to go into a little bit more detail as to the types of cards that are out there. There's essentially 4 types of cards that you'll be dealing with. Type card number 1, we have the buildings. They're represented kind of by this blue symbol. Basically, these cost energy. You'll see here, too, that each of the cards, how much it costs, is dependent upon what row it is in. I think this is really slick because it's inherently always better to take a card of equal value up in the top row than in the bottom row, because, yeah, you'll get first choice next time. You'll get more access to the things that you want. But I love, love, love that as it goes down, the cost gets a little bit less, right? And so it incentivizes you to take it a little bit later too, which I think is really fun. So these, you just get straight points. This symbol right here is worth points. You also would get 1 experience for finding this network. And then over here, this shows you that this can be paired with something later. So if you get another card down the line that can be found in planets 2, 4, 5, 6, and 7, weird that we need to explore the planets when we know exactly what sort of things are on them, but, you know, whatever. If you make a pair, you'll get not only these 2 points for this card, but the 2 points on the other card as well. So it incentivizes you kind of set collecting this specifically named structure. And there's a bunch of different named structures out there. So that's what the blue cards do. The yellow cards are very simple. They either give you energy, so this is a way for you to gain energy that you can then spend on other cards, or you can flip them upside down and then have this as a permanent income boost throughout the game. And of course, these get better and better as the planets progress as well. So you're very simple, your engine building right here. You're choosing how much income do you need, or how can you get it from other sources. And speaking of other sources, here we have the research cards. Research cards will give you points, and they'll also give you permanent abilities as well. So this one, for example, is once per turn before taking your turn, you can flip up a card and put it into the third row, because there'll always be a couple of cards that you haven't chosen, you haven't added to the planet, which is great. So you're not always seeing the same stuff and seeing the same things come up over and over again, but you have a slight variability. But this helps you mitigate that. If you're looking for a very specific card, you can get it, and you also can time it out that only you can have access to it. So that's kind of a fun ability. All the abilities are pretty fun, and they have different strengths and strategies as you go through the game. And then finally, you have these red cards. These are the sort of baddies that you have to fight. Down here are the rewards, or what you get. And here it shows the cost and strength that you have to spend, and also the experience that you need to be at in order to fight them. If you're not at this experience, say you're at experience 0, it's going to cost you more strength, because you're not battle hardened yet. You're not a wizened warrior, but you're just a little baby. And so you need to be a very strong baby if you want to overcome this psycho, right? So those are the basics of the card. There's also one final ability which is always available in tiers 1, 2, and 3. We're going to look at operations number 3 because it's the best. Basically, you get a number of operation points, and you can just cash them in for stuff. So you can turn them into points, you can turn them into strength, you can turn them into experience. That's what you can do. You can never just turn them into points, because you're limited to the planet number that you're on. So if you're on round 3, you can only take 3 points, and then you have to convert some stuff into resources. But later on at the end of the game, you're like, okay, maybe I'll take a bunch of points as well. Those are the cards. Those are the overarching things. You're combining those cards with these player powers that you have, trying to get the most points. And also, to shake things up just a little bit more, there are these 7 different planets which provide end goals and shift your strategy throughout. So here, for example, gain 2 points for each of your blue cards outside of your pairs of identical cards. So you're incentivized to just go for blue cards, right? Or you're incentivized to go for experience, because you gain 7 points if you get 10 experience points, if you max out of your experience. And then you also get 7 points if you're the player with the most energy cards. So it kind of incentivizes you to race against all the other players. And all of these do things with a different kind of setup. This is for sort of red cards affecting. This is being the player with the most of these effects, because sometimes you can circumvent the fighting. You can actually use diplomacy, and you can just spend energy instead of strength, right? You're just spending stuff either way, but there's some flexibility on the cards in terms of what powers you get, etc. But that's the game. You're going to go through those 7 rounds. Person with the most points wins. And I'll tell you, I've had varying experiences with this game, and I think all of that revolves around player count. I first played this game at 2 players. And so in a 2-player game, I'll do that setup for you. Let's say we have this. We have 3 cards in the second row, 4 cards in the first row, etc. Here's our decision space that happens. We have a total of 9 cards, and only 4 of those cards are going to get chosen. And so in this aspect, well, I basically just have to wait out my opponent for one other card. There's no real competition for any strategy. And because of that, the 2-player game left me with feeling that this game was fun, but more aggressively fine. Just aggressively average, completely nondescript, completely uninteresting, and no reason to ever play it again. But I had a feeling that the more players you add, the better this game becomes. And that feeling was correct, because when you add in, even getting to the 4th player, let's say, we're at 4 players now, and 8 of these cards, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, will get chosen. You're still left with 4 cards. It's kind of a similar experience at that 4 player as it is the 2 player, right? But when you get to 6 players, and I think 6 players is the real sweet spot here, you're finally getting competition for these cards. It's all about how many cards are going to be remaining on the board at the end of the game or at the end of the round. And with 6 players, there's none. There's none remaining, and that makes each choice meaningful because your options are going to be cut in half. They're going to be cut in half on your second turn. And so you want to really think out what players are going to do. The positioning then becomes really important. You might opt for something a little bit suboptimal because then it allows you to get the thing that you really wanted for your second pick. The positioning going into the next age really matters. I found myself in the base the last row and I felt, yeah, I'm great. I'm getting a bunch of stuff for cheaper, but I'm losing access to the things that I really, really want. At 6 players, this game is quite good. There's a great tension here, and that is the best and potentially only way and only player count to play this game at. And it plays quickly too. It plays super quickly. I mean, at 2 players, we played in like half an hour. 6 players, it gets a little bit longer, but you're only going through 7 rounds. You're only ever taking 14 actions, right? These are 14 moves that you're taking, 14 decisions to be made. And these decisions aren't going to take you that long because everybody's surveying the board at the same time. Like this game can play in half hour to 40 minutes very easily. And I like that as a time frame. Playing it at that 6 player count, at that higher player count, also shows you the differences of strategies and the way the cards intersect and how they intersect in a really exciting way and in a really balanced way. Because you're not getting everything you wanted. When I was playing at a 2 player and that smaller player count, I got everything I wanted. And when I didn't, I was like, okay, well, that person's going for buildings. I could fight them in buildings, or I could just do the other route of bad guys. So I'm just going to do that. And we'll just compare points at the end. Right? You lose a lot of that tension. You lose a lot of that needing to adapt to what happens because everything is at your disposal. Even at a 3 player game here, right? You're just removing 6 cards. You still have 3 cards remaining. It's still 33% of what you're picking from. You still have basically 50% of the board to choose from if you've just chosen to go last. There's no real penalty for going last because you're like, yeah, I'm still going to get a whole bunch of options, and they're designed so that all the cards like work synergistically together. But where this game really, really shines, and I feel should only be considered at, is in that 6 player area when there's nothing left. When going here has ramifications, when these get used and used multiple times because people don't like the leftovers. They think they want to eke out that extra experience. They want to prep for the next round. They want to eke out those few little points. That's where this game can be quite good. Any other player count, don't do it. 5 players, I don't know. I've played it 2, 3, and 6. 6 was so good. 6 was by far the best experience. 2 and 3, I wouldn't even bother. 5 players, I think I wouldn't bother. You know, I just see I don't want to try it at 5. I might pull it up for 5, but there are often other games that you could just do at 5. I think this existing as a 6 player game, it should be built as a 6 player only game, because then you get to that weird point where you're like, there's 6 of us. What should we do? This is a legitimate good option for those times. I would very happily play this anytime at 6 players. And as the players go down, so does my interest. Because it's all about that turn order and abusing that and making that draft feel meaningful. And the more options there are, the less meaningful your choices feel because there is no competition. But at 6 players, hey, if you primarily play like 5 or 6 and you're looking for a drafting game, I like this better than 7 Wonders. For sure. I like the tracks. I like that you don't have to invest your choices and your cards in those resources, even though you kind of do in a sense. But it doesn't feel like you're just building up resources to try to get buildings or whatever. It just feels, I don't know, it feels fun choosing a path to streamline it. It feels fun having an asymmetric ability, and I like the variability of those end game goals that exists as well. And the power of the level 7 cards and the amount of points that you can accrue from them. Like if you're going heavy into blue buildings, this one doesn't have a match, but it just gives you 12 points if you spend 10 energy. Like that's a lot of energy. When most energy tracks only go up to 18, that's a lot of energy. But still, Government Palace, it's a lot of points. I don't know. Anyway, I hope that was helpful in deciding if Planetfall works for you. I'd say, 4. I haven't tried it at 4. I'm probably not gonna. So I think if there's 4 players, I'm going to be playing something a little bit meatier for my own personal tastes. But at 6 players, I can highly, highly recommend. At any other player count, I can't. So final score, this kind of gets like a 3.5 out of 5, I guess, because it only works in one player count. This player count is a lie, but if I had a list of top 6 player games, it might be on it. So it really shows you like there is a really solid game here. It just depends upon the constraints that other players are able to put upon you while you're playing. Anyway, there you go. That's my review of Planetfall: Age of Wonders. I haven't played the video game, but I know some people who have, and they say it's super complicated, and this is absolutely not. So this is for sure just a nice IP to get people excited about, and I think it's a nice game too. Thanks for watching. My name's Chris George. I don't have a catchphrase, but I do have a video game, I guess, that I got to go try out with 5 of my friends.